We're here outside the Royal Courts of Justice in London, where the judge has just given his verdict that there cannot be a judicial review into Section 24 of the Finance Act. And I'm joined now by the co-claimants, Steve Bolton and Chris Cooper, to get their reactions. And of course, guys, we're all bitterly disappointed, aren't we?
We are, V. We failed in law, but this was always a battle, a fight that was going to be fought on two fronts, both legally and politically. The legal route is now dead, the political route is now wide open, and it's the responsibility of all the landlords in this country and the various organisations in our coalition to come together and take the fight to government in the harshest and the strongest possible way, because this is an unfair tax policy. It's going to lead to disastrous consequences. It is a tenant tax. It affects landlords, it affects tenants, and it's going to be bad for the economy as well. And Theresa May recently went on record and said this is a country that works for everyone. Well, this is a tax that works for no one. And it's our job to fight in the strongest possible way against this, to get the government, the new government, to see sense and actually do a U-turn or remove the retrospective and retroactive nature of this particular taxation policy.
And Chris, what's your reaction? Because you've put so much work into it, like the rest of the tenant tax team.
Well, I agree with Steve. As far as we were concerned, the judicial review avenue was one tool in our toolbox, and we're fighting this on many fronts. As far as I'm concerned, I'm still very optimistic that this policy will get either scrapped or amended, because as soon as anybody actually understands the consequences of what's going to happen, increased homelessness, people paying tax on fictitious incomes, then anybody in their right mind knows that this is not going to work. As Steve just said, Theresa May has said she wants a country that works for everyone. And there aren't any brackets after that says except for individual, non-incorporated landlords. And they are being penalised. These are people that have taken responsibility for their own financial future, and it's going to destroy livelihoods and pensions at a time when pensions and interest, as Sherry Blair was saying, have also been not giving the returns that people expected. So we've taken responsibility for ourselves, and now we've had the rug pulled from under our feet. But that doesn't mean we're going to stop the fight, and I know that this will get scrapped or amended at some stage.
So you're still feeling very positive. So what's going to happen next, Steve? What level is the campaign going to go to now?
So we take the fight with the landlord organisations, with the landlords behind us, to the government with lobbying, campaigning. We have a number of media initiatives that are planned. It's going to be very big coverage from today. I'm really pushing home the point. This is a failed tax experiment. This is not new. This was tried in Ireland in 1998. It lasted 3 years before the government scrapped it. Why? Because rents went up by 50%. If the government in this country want rents to go up to dramatically high levels that we've never seen before, for tenants to not be able to save for that all-important deposit, and for landlords to flee the market in their masses, then carry on and keep this policy going. But it's an absolute nonsense. It's a disgrace. It needs to be scrapped, and we're going to be fighting it in the media, in the halls of Parliament, and in the court of public opinion.
Fantastic fighting's talk there from you, Steve. Fully support you 100%. I know that you've had a lot of support from many different industry bodies, of course, individual landlords. There's the camera. What would you like to say to the supporters of the tenant tax campaign?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody, all of our 3,000 plus donations, the Property 118 Action Group, the Residential Landlords Association, the National Landlords Association, Vabu, Shawbrook Bank, all of the landlord associations around the country, and the individual hard-working landlords and tenants. You know, we have a number of tenants that support what we're doing as well. Spare Room, and the Institute of Fiscal Studies, all of the accountancy associations. There is compelling and overwhelming support, not just from the landlord community, but from industry-wide political halls. You know, more members of Parliament are now coming out in support of what we're talking about, Lord Flight and others. So thank you to everybody. Whilst we might all be disappointed, this is not the end of the road. Actually, this is an opportunity to focus 100% of our efforts in fighting this tax on a political and public relations front, and that's what we're committed to doing.
Fantastic, well said. Well, on behalf of the property community, I would like to thank you and Chris for uniting us all together, all working for the same cause, and all your efforts and hard work and the time that you've put into this. Thank you very much. This is not the end, and right now we're going to cross over to a statement from Cherie Blair QC, and also hear from other industry stakeholders and landlords their reactions to this news.
Well, of course, the court's decision that our client's case should not proceed is very disappointing. Steve and Chris and many, many others who are in court today and also across the country have devoted a lot of time and energy putting forward the best possible case and highlighting the injustice to the ordinary individual landlord who has put his hard-earned money into property at a time when interest rates are so very low, as our Prime Minister acknowledged just yesterday. We know this case has been supported and followed by a number, many individuals up and down the land. And these individuals now face very challenging times ahead. But from the outset, this was never simply about the legal case. This is just one aspect of our clients' fight against this unfair measure. Together with their impressive and growing coalition, we will continue to engage with the government and to make sure that their message comes over about the inherent unfairness of this tax. And the legal team wish them all the best and every success in that campaign. It's not over yet.
Please.
Obviously, it's incredibly disappointing. I really thought that certainly the state aid case had some legs behind it. Some reasonable arguments were made, but the judge has made his decision, made it quite clear. It's a decision now as to whether an appeal goes forwards, and I'm not sure that that's going to be taken forwards. So the case is now to take the political case forwards. There's definitely been some softening from Barwell, and also the Treasury Committee recently announced that the changes at the taxation system was not appropriate to continue to solve the housing crisis, which is what we really need to focus on here. So the RLA, along with the Tenant Tax lobby, will continue to do that. And ultimately, we have to consider what the impacts of all of this is, and it is around what's going to affect the tenants. When you combine it with the legislative changes that are occurring across the board, it's going to only put rents up in one direction.
It's incredibly disappointing. I can't express to you how disappointing this is. For the judge to say that an individual landlord is not doing exactly the same job as the corporate landlord who is doing the same thing is beyond my comprehension. It's ludicrous.
And are you?
I'm really shocked actually and really disappointed with that. I think it's really bad news for tenants, and I think it's bad news for existing landlords. We're going to be taxed in some cases more than what we have in profits, and I think it almost feels like it's on a technicality because our profits are not worked out in the same way as a company, and that's apparently fair. But I think ultimately it's the end user that will pay.
Absolutely devastated. Really thought it was going our way in court. Really was positive, but can't believe it's gone this way. But we're not going to give up now. I think the fight starts now with the media and with the public, and I think we will win in the end. But it might be a fight, but we're going to do it.
It's incredibly disappointing. I think the legal argument came out very clearly in the session. I think very much from my perspective it's about the moral argument and not having these new taxes ultimately affect tenants. Nobody wants to put their rents up, and I guess the fight, as Steve was saying, very much starts now from a moral, political and economic standpoint. So, watch this space, I guess.
Come is treated. I think now we need to get this more public. There's still a lot of accidental landlords that don't even know this is going on. Amazingly, they don't know it's going on. Perhaps as maybe some of us more professional investors and landlords know about these things, and we're sort of starting to take actions. I think there's a lot of people that still don't know about it. So really a bit disappointed today, but it's not the end of the world. I think the next thing for me is I'm going to talk to my MP. If they don't know already, they will do by the time I've spoken to them. And I think that's something we can all do. I think we need to get it out more in the public domain. So anything we can do to publicise through our networking, which has already been going on to some extent. We can do more. Just make sure that any landlord, any other landlord that we know, knows about this and understands the principles, understands what we're fighting for. I think it's an unjust ruling that's come from the government, and I think they really need to reconsider. It's not going to help tenants. I think for me, the first thing I think about is I'm going to need to pay for this somehow, because I've got a huge tax bill coming up. I've either got to sell my properties, so I'm not going to be able to rent them out to potential tenants, or I'm going to put the rent up, or maybe a combination of both. But I've got to do something, because I'm going to be out of pocket.
I'm certainly feeling downhearted, not sure how to move forward, but there is absolutely no question whatsoever that I will not be carrying on the fight. I'm a regular lobbyist anyway. I'm into all sorts of ways in which we can keep fighting this, and I have been from the very start. I work very closely with Steve and Chris, the Property 118 group, and the Conservative Party internally, and I will do everything I can to keep fighting this.
Do you think that this huge kind of coverage today could be a springboard to engage more landlords that actually weren't really engaged with the topic before?
Well, let's hope so. Unfortunately, landlords seem to be notoriously apathetic to things, even things that are going to affect them very badly, and we absolutely have to get the numbers out there. We need to get people fighting this, speaking to their MPs, contacting the government, and making clear cases for exactly how it's going to affect them, because until we get those numbers behind us, we're not going to be heard now.
So if you were speaking to the landlords watching this, what would you say to them that the actions they need to take?
I think they should engage with websites like Property 118 and Property Tribes. I think they should be speaking to their MPs. They should be bringing the attention to their local councils. Contact the leader of your local council, get the portfolio holder for housing, and start explaining to them exactly how this is going to affect them, because councils don't want this to happen. We've recently seen Peterborough spend £1 million on Travelodge rooms. If you can get hold of that link off the internet and send it to your local authority, that would be a very good start. But other than that, keep hitting the government in every way you can to make them aware of what this means.